What events in history should we know to get ready for what's coming? And do you have any book recommendations for getting ready to know what's coming?
Sure. The book recommendations would be Surviving Zombie Apocalypses.
What's the end times novel that ends with the guy in security at Christ Church?
It's John Wesley Rawls. I forget the name of the book.
Okay.
But he's a survivalist guy.
Okay. Do you think that's where we're headed?
Actually, no. I think that things are going to be bumpy for a while. Mm-hmm. And there's no way you can be this stupid for this long and not have to pay the piper to some extent.
Yeah.
So we've been taunting and making fun of reality and gravity and all kinds of things for decades now. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to have to pay the piper. We're going to, we're going to have to do that. But I think that's going to be measured in 2 to 5 to 8 years of mm-hmm. bad road.
Okay.
Let's say the 2020s we're in, and I think that after that things will stabilize, because in the long run stupidity never works. Stupidity mm-hmm. is not a long-term strategy, and at some point everything will right itself. Mm-hmm. You cannot persistently insult the permanent things mm-hmm. without having the permanent things at some point punch back. Yeah. Right. The person asked about books. If you don't mind secular books, if you're a mature enough Christian to be able to pull out the common grace mm-hmm. insights and jettison things that don't fit, I'd recommend The Fourth Turning by a couple of guys. I've forgotten their names. Fourth Turning. There's another more recent book called The Storm Before the Calm. The Storm Before the Calm. And these are guys who sort of analyze demographic mm-hmm. Cycles and trends in society, particularly in American society. Mm-hmm. So this is just a small portion of it, but it illustrates the ancient Romans measured things in 80-year seculum, a long human life, and they said that human societies cycle through 80-year quadrants. This is The Fourth Turning. The book The Fourth Turning argues this, and the American War for Independence was one crisis, and it's crisis to crisis, mm-hmm. between 80-year gap between crises. American War for Independence was one crisis. 80 years later was the Civil War. Mm-hmm. 80 years later was World War II. Mm-hmm. 80 years later is right now. Yeah. Right. So we're in the middle of a societal crisis comparable to the Civil War, mm-hmm. and I don't think Americans have been as divided and at each other's throats since the Civil War. Mm-hmm. And if we were geographically divided, we'd probably be at war already. Mm-hmm. So there was the Civil War, then World War II, which was an extra-national mm-hmm. Threat, but a crisis. And now we're having a domestic crisis mm-hmm. again. So if you look at these patterns, you can say, okay, what leads up, mm-hmm. how do people respond? Who is the hero during the crisis? During World War II, the returning GIs came back from World War II. They won. They defeated the enemy, and their kids were the boomers. Yeah. Right. And the boomers, so you have that first generation. Then the boomers come of age 20 years later. That's an awakening. That's mm-hmm. the Flower Children, mm-hmm. the Summer of Love, Dylan, all of that. And then you have the unraveling, and then you have the crisis again. Mm-hmm. So societies go through age stages, mm-hmm. just like people do. So if you want to read, The Fourth Turning talks about this. There's a book you can probably find online by Sir John Glubb, which is probably 100 years old, called The Fate of Empires. Okay. The Fate of Empires. And he argues that the life cycle of a whole civilization is 200 years. And he's arguing the same way. Mm-hmm. And The Storm Before the Calm is arguing a similar sort of way, only written more recently.